moves us, excuse me, to our action agenda. Do we have any actions on matters discussed in executive session?
I make a motion to approve the selected employment items in Exhibit A for action.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? And the motion carries 6-0. Do you have any other motions? All right. That moves us to the second reading approval of a proposed revisions to board policy DB annual budget.
I make a motion to approve the second reading of proposed revisions to board policy DB annual budget as shown in Exhibit F.
Do I have a second? Do I have any discussion or questions for Ms. Huddle?
I have an amendment. I move to amend the motion to change the wording of the fifth bullet to maintenance of an operating fund balance per board policy DFAB reserve funds.
I second.
It's purely just a operational change to make it so that if there's ever a change to DFAB, you don't also have to change DB. So it's really just to make the wording easier. Instead of repeating what the fund balance should be, just refer to the DFAB policy. Yes. So that fifth bullet would say, maintenance of an operating fund balance per board policy DFAB reserve funds. And just to, I guess to elaborate, I've been on the board long enough that I've seen that when you have policies that touch each other and they repeat each other and a policy gets changed one place, sometimes it doesn't always get changed the second place. So it just seemed to me there was no reason to repeat the way the fund balance works, just simply to refer to the fund balance policy rather than having to have it two different places.
Ms. Tucker, does that mean anything to you?
No, that makes perfect sense
Okay.
to refer to one policy versus the other.
Did we get a second? Okay. Do we have other discussion? Okay, Ms. Barnhart? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Satterfield, you look like you're ready to press your button. All right, Ms. Huddle, can you repeat your motion? I'm sorry.
I move to amend the motion in order to change the wording of the fifth bullet to maintenance of an operating fund balance per board policy DFAB reserve funds.
We have a motion, an amendment to the motion on the floor from Ms. Huddle, and it's been properly second. All in favor of Ms. Huddle's motion? All opposed? And abstained? Do you need a second? What does the thumbs up mean? Are you abstaining or are you still reading? I just don't want to skip you. In favor, all right. And the motion carries 5-1. Then back to the original motion on the floor that has also been properly second. All those in favor of the approval of the second reading of the policy? All opposed? And the motion carries 6-0. Hang tight, Ms. Tucker. All right, that takes us to number 16 on the action agenda. Second reading approval of proposed revisions to board policy DFAB reserve funds.
Make a motion to approve the second reading of proposed revisions to board policy DFAB reserve funds shown in Exhibit G.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do you have any discussion, Ms. Huddle?
I move that we defer second reading of board changes to board policy DFAB until we can address wording to make the policy consistent with the way that Moody's addresses reserve funds.
Second.
To explain that, the board policy is drafted, states that that one of the reasons is to get bond ratings of a AA nature or better. And I sent everybody this information that I got from Mr. Glover. The Moody's rating is not 15 to 18%, and it's not taking into account unencumbered and all that other stuff. The Moody's rating is actually 17.5 to 25%, and it's based on the actual reserve balance in our financial statements. Under the Moody's rating, we're actually at 27% right now. We're actually higher. And so the way that the way that's being proposed, it actually could increase our taxes because it could increase the required reserves because you could encumber a lot of things. And it's kind of a double counting when you encumber within a reserve. It's kind of double counting. And again, so the purpose of it, as stated, is to get the bond rating. So we really ought to measure it the way the bond rating services do. So that's the reason I think we should defer it until we can give Ms. Tucker a chance to look at that and maybe come back to us with alternative language.
It's just interested in the order of these motions. We've changed the language to defer to DFAB, but then changed DFAB's structure. So the 2 to 3 months is no longer the board's position. And I'm confused about where 27% comes from.
I sent that to everyone. That came from Mr. Glover. He said, Ms. Tucker's shaking her head, I think. Did you get that? I know I didn't send it to you, but did you get it?
So that includes our total fund balance, including the assigned, the unassigned, and the,
So the way Moody's rates it is for a AA credit rating. There's a lot of factors. In fact,
I was cut off. I didn't, I'm sorry. I didn't know we can cut people off.
I'm sorry. I was trying to explain that the 27% came from Mr. Glover, who is our financial consultant, that based on the way Moody's looks at a AA credit rating, they are looking for a fund balance of 17.5 to 25%. And ours, the way Moody's calculates it, is 27%.
I haven't seen a document with 27% from Moody's. I think the 26.4% is all of what they look at as a rating agency in terms of if there's ever a situation where our bonds fail or we have to default. All of our assets, non-spendable, assigned and unassigned, are included in that 26%. What the GFOA recommends is for the unassigned that we have to be within where?
within, the GFO is 2 to 6 months.
2 to 6 months. We've just removed that requirement from language. So we are now outside of what that recommendation is, because the language is not in that, it's to refer to DFAB, which is the motion to defer. Again, I'm just, as superintendent, it's my responsibility to inform the board before any vote. And I just want to inform the board that we remove the language and then we're now removing or deferring what this refers to. So we will go back where we don't have that language of that, what the GFOA has set forth of the minimum, even 2 months, correct?
So if we were to defer tonight, our current policy DFAB would stand, which is 15 to 18%.
Correct, and I understand that. What I'm saying is GFOA does not give any percentage, right? They use 2 to 4 months, correct?
They use 2 to 6 months.
And is that 2 to 4 months of unassigned or all total or all three components of reserve.
They typically look at unassigned because that's where your flexibility is.
And that's kind of what I just wanted to make clarification, is that I think we're I don't want to say cherry picking, but we're taking how the calculations are made from the credit rating agency and how the calculations are made from GFOA. We threw one away, but we don't use the credit rating agency, Moody's or Standard & Poor. We don't operate under that position. For example, when we look at how we have to spend fund balance, are we looking at how, when you look at the recommended policy and our current, these blue bars, do they represent what Moody's would have calculated or what the GFA would have calculated?
They represent our unassigned fund balance.
Unassigned fund balance, right. So because that unassignment of that 2 to 3 months is now out, that's the question I have, is that we're talking about Moody's, but this is unassigned. We are currently starting the school year. Teachers are to report back July the 31st. Believe so. So that means training for teachers will start a little earlier. We're going to be moving up about 3 payroll classes for payroll to start a little earlier. That means in October, that blue line has it can go a little deeper down, correct?
We will accrue essentially 3 additional payrolls in July because of when teachers are starting to not have our brand new teachers go 30 days without a paycheck. So we are shifting our payroll schedule for that reason this year.
And again, just as my role as superintendent to just provide it as a superintendent, and I just think for one motion to remove language, the other motion to defer, I just want to clarify how Moody's looks at our fund balance, how GFOA and finance looks at our fund balance. It's 2 different things. We can't spend unspendable money, and once it's already assigned, that money has a string attached to it. So our operations, which I'm responsible for, I think is in jeopardy without that 2 to 3 month protection. I understand the percentage, but if there's no language and Heather, please correct me when I'm wrong, if there's no language to indicate that 17 to 20 or that 15 to 18 is going to the unassigned, then I think we could be out of practice and policy. So just wanted to mention that. I'm not going to delay the meeting, but I don't know about the deferring of that.
Ms. Huddle, and then I'm going to call for the vote.
So first of all, the policy that we have in place still stands, and we're not doing anything right now to affect the fund balance. So we have plenty of time to talk about this. I sent an email, Mr. Glover sent an email on March 31st to me and copied Dr. Ross, Ms. Snipes, Ms. Tucker, and himself, and so where did the 27% come from? He said, also the appendix to the report provides the definition for how Moody's calculates their ratios, which can vary between the different agencies. Moody's includes committed, assigned, and unassigned fund balances in what we consider to be the district's operating funds, which results in a 27% ratio based on current financials. I am just proposing that at our next meeting, we get the GFAO, the Moody's, and whatever, because if we set this too high, especially if we're considering a major increase in the budget, if we set this too high, it is going to cause our operating property tax to go up. So especially if we're considering an increase already for the operating budget, we need to be very careful that we are not, these are our taxpayers' funds, and we are in absolutely no danger of not having the money on hand right now. So I just feel like we need to take the time and get this right, because if we do increase the millage rate, we need to be able to say to our taxpayers, this is why we did it and we didn't have any choice.
Ms. Tucker, did you want to say something?
Oh.
Okay. I didn't mean to cut people off. Did you want to say something, Kevin?
Yeah, I do not recommend we vote for this amendment. We need to vote it down. And Mr. Glover's statement was talking about current financials. Current financials are a cross-section of a certain point in time. Current financials, as of March 31st, are going to be different than your current financials in October or September. So whatever data or whatever number that derives on March 31st is not the full story. And we're talking about, and I just fundamentally disagree, it's not going, setting this policy to increase the percentage to really just be and comply with where we're already at. We're not adding anything, we're not increasing millage. That is misinformation and it's a misinterpretation of what we're doing. So millage will not increase specifically because of this policy change. And we need to vote this deferment down.
Ms. Tucker and Dr. Ross, this is second reading, so regardless, it has to come back to us at the next meeting, and it sounds like it'll be helpful for Mr. Glover to be here as there are many outstanding questions.
No, actually, if we pass it, it's done. Second read, we don't do a third reading.
Okay. All right, we have an amendment. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm happy to get that information, so,
Thank you.
well,
Let's plan on it. We have an amendment on the floor, amendment to the motion to defer, and it has been properly second. All those in favor? All opposed? It's a tie, so the motion fails. So can we plan to have Mr. Glover at the next meeting? But also, yes, it'll be good to have an answer to those questions, but in case we have additional questions, I think that would be helpful.
absolutely.
You still have to vote
Oh,
on the original.
yes, sorry. And then back to the original motion that was properly second. All those in favor? All opposed? And we're back.
I will ask Mr. Glover to attend virtually next meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Should we have, let's have the auditor as well, if we can get
Okay.
both, so we can hear from
From both sides.
Bond's situation, I mean, you know, the financial situation.
Financial order. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Tucker. All right. That takes us to item 7.
Point of order, that last vote was 3-3, so that motion fails, correct?
That takes us to number 17 on the agenda, approval of the strategic plan amendments, Exhibit H.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Approaching the lectern is our Chief of Student Services and Planning, Dr. Mike Harris, and Director of Accountability, Audrey Black, for approval of our strategic plan amendments. Dr. Harris.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. Madam Chair, members of the board, our community, I, along with Ms. Audrey Black, our Director of Planning and Accountability, stand before you with a recommendation for approval of the strategic plan amendments associated with calendar years 2022 through 2027.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the strategic plan amendments for 2022 and 2020 through 2027 as shown in Exhibit H.
Do I have a second? All right, do we have any questions? Jason?
There was I don't know if you all have it in slides or not, but I mean, this thing is huge, right? And can you point to, Dr. Ross in his presentation had the 2030 goal that's set by the Department of Ed, I believe 75% of children reading on grade level by then, as well as on standards for math. Can you point to which sections of this strategic plan are going to get us close? If this is a 5-year plan, that puts us at what? Right there, right?
What was your question? I'm sorry.
Which sections of this strategic plan are going to get us to the Department of Ed's 75% goal for ELA and math.
Okay.
So these are our student achievement goals.
I can't hear
And
you.
so these are our student achievement goals. The first one is for math, and the second one is for reading. These are conditional growth percentiles, the median conditional growth percentiles. So we are looking at how students are growing as they compare to their peers. And just as a reminder, at 50, they are growing at the same rate as their peers nationally. Anything below a 50 means we are growing at a slower rate, and anything above 50 means we are growing at a faster rate. So as you can see, we are trying to keep our growth at something that's above what is happening nationally. So 55 is for math, and we are at 55, and we are just a little bit below at 53 this past year for reading, where we wanted to be at 56, but we are still above nationally where the peers are growing for those grade levels.
Okay, I guess what I'm asking is, this is measured differently than the Department of Ed's goals, correct?
It is.
Do we have a performance goal in here that aligns with the Department of Ed's goal?
Not in the same language. These goals should hopefully get us to be aligned. And I was not here when they were decided on, but I believe that the district felt at the time that these would help us reach that State Department goal.
Are we permitted, Dr. Ross, to change the goals to align, I should say, with the Department of Ed's goals?
You can, and I think one of the things that, just wanted you to understand why we use median growth percentiles instead of that. And that's a good point. Why not just put 70 by this time, or 65 by, every 2 years we get 2%. And we saw that with Leave No Child Left Behind. I would think we were supposed to get 100% by 2020 or something. We were supposed to have 100%. It was happening every year. We were missing our mark. It looked good on the line to get there, but we weren't getting there. And I think with Dr. Holden, we started looking at what is a better way to see that we're actually making that progress. And that was if every student was outpacing their cohort, then we would actually be moving to the achievement mark. So I think one of the things we could do is, I don't want to get rid of all of that work in terms of growth, but if we say, if we hit these points every year, this should equal this passage rate. I would like to add versus get rid of, because all of our teachers and our staff, our PD is really geared on not counting any student out and looking at the growth of every child. So whether you are, ID identified, or the kids that we had who are above, they should outpace their individual groups, and that would help us get there. So I see what you're saying, and I agree there should be, where's that target? But we've learned from No Child Left Behind, just throwing a number out there without having a pathway to get there wasn't effective. And I think a lot of districts were missing. So one of the things we saw was that median growth percentile was the best way to track our growth arc towards that 70. But Mr. Giuliano, if there's something that I'm missing you'd like to add in terms of what we're doing in terms of measurements, I want to give you that opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. One component I'd like to add too is by using MAP and the median conditional growth percentile, that's taken place 3 times throughout the school year. So it's given us data throughout the school year versus SC Ready, which takes place at one point in time at the end of the school year. So by using the median conditional growth percentile, we can look at what our students come back in the fall, what they are, to see if they're making that progress from fall to winter. And then we can make instructional decisions and changes within our classroom based upon that data. And then from the winter to the spring, we can make additional instructional changes to our instruction that's taken place in the classroom based upon that data. Where if we're waiting for SC Ready in the May, Now we're waiting throughout the entire school year to do anything with the data, and the data is not something that was usable at that moment. So for the state purposes and report card purposes, they use some of that data for SC Ready. But for our purposes within the district, it's more valuable to us to use data that's actionable throughout the school year and gives specific strands and standards that students need to meet, and they may not be meeting at that particular time in the fall, in the winter, and in the spring. So we can make adjustments before SC Ready.
So Dr. Ross, this is going to be sent to the Department of Ed, right? And what's
Yes,
their
ma'am.
deadline?
April 30th.
Okay.
And I would also like to add that this is for year 4 of our plan. So we have had these goals for the past 3 years for this plan.
Okay, I mean, I guess I'm concerned that, and maybe not for this year, but maybe an internal goal, but to me, these things are measured differently. You can hit your 55% median growth, but you could still not hit 75% of children being on grade level, because you're measuring 2 different things. So I'll just put this out there. I would like to see us, whether it's just for us and not the Department of Ed, but I would like to see us truly look at that number as well, because there may be things that we have to do to hit that number that are different than what we have to do to hit this.
I see, one of the things that we can do in an academic report, Mr. Giuliano, is maybe talk about how we're using median conditional growth percentiles. Because what I see if we were hitting 57 every year since then, you could show an arc to passing the state's projection. I think where we lose is if a child is, and I go back to that classroom with the children in red. The children in red get no credit, and we were seeing in the old model where they would have to get from red to green, we weren't seeing them grow. We just weren't seeing any movement. And so if you were in red, you stayed red. If you were in yellow, you stayed yellow, and they never grew. I think what's encouraging about this is now a teacher can see a child in red and say, you're on a 3-year path to being green or a 2-year path to being green. And so the data is in there. I would just ask that maybe we go back and show how if we meet that every year, we can show a child, yeah, by 2030, you will be. You're on pace to grow out of where your condition is. So I think we just want, as Mr. Giuliano said, data that's useful for our teachers throughout the year. It's that red bar and blue bar, right? That gives us more information than the end of year summative when we've lost them. But I think one of the things we can do is just kind of articulate, if a child's in red and they say they meet our district goal of 55 in growth percentile, how long before they would be in green? If we can kind of show that, Audrey, I think that would help. Not for the purposes of tonight, but just for educating the public. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I understand the requirement to meet state regulations and all of that, but I also don't want to overlook, this is a local school board, a local school district, and I like that we have our own plan and our own goals that are not necessarily, we're not abdicating it and passing it off to the state. We're developing our own set of plans and goals for our residents and our students, and therefore we're retaining local control of that. And I think generally that's a good idea. So I think Dr. Giuliano's explanation was on point, that it allows us, the data that we're using allow us to pivot throughout the year. And so I think it's a very good thing. So I'm in favor of what you're proposing.
Okay. As far as, we all get a lot of emails in reference to bullying, discipline issues. What have we been doing? Do you feel that it's working for bullying and discipline? Hear a lot of feedback from students, from parents that, they're dealing with it the proper channels and it's going unaddressed. Do we have a game plan to improve are we going to do something different, or are we just kind of working with what we got so far the past 4 years?
Thank you, Mr. Bainham. I appreciate the question. I think what we're doing is actually working far more in our favor than not. The thing that has worked, and we talked with this board, at least a board some time ago, about making certain that the requests and concerns go through the proper channels. And we certainly appreciate parents doing that. I think what we're doing currently in terms of continuing to educate our administrators, going through our think tank sessions, things that we have been doing, is actually working for us. And I really, quite frankly, as I look at and consider the data itself, the bullying is not increasing. I think we've actually done taken some measurable steps to decrease that far more than increase it at this particular point.
Okay. The other one was, we've been getting questions from parents and community members about, as far as, and I don't know if this is operations, the metal detectors, understanding that that would take additional staff, but without getting into specifics, we have had incidents at elementary schools with weapons in the past 2 months. So it's difficult to man those, having to wand students as they come through. Do we have any, idea do we need to hire additional staff to make our community and our parents feel that their kiddos are safe?
We continue to look at safety and security measures on a daily basis as well. And I can tell you that there's not a week that goes by that we're not looking at, meeting with, talking with groups and organizations to see what we can do to improve and build upon what we currently have here in the district. So the short answer to that is yes, we continue to move forward with that. And we do continue to make plans and preparations to increase what we have in terms of weapon detections at all of our schools.
Good, thank you.
I guess two things. I want to go back to the reading thing, because it's not just, these are not numbers, these are children. And if you have a child that can't read by 3rd grade, they're just, statistically, they're in a lot of trouble. And I know Ms. McCaskill has laid out for us a lot of things that we're doing for that. So, I wish we had this earlier so we had a chance to maybe address some of that. But I'm just extremely concerned that we're not putting that into what we're sharing. The other thing I'd like to ask about, and it relates to the discipline and the bullying and all that, on the state report card, one of the questions that they ask each teachers at each school is, it's a question, and I'm going to paraphrase, but it says something basically like, I agree that my school enforces the discipline policy. And so the higher the number, the better. So ideally, we get 100%. That score varies a lot from school to school, and some of the scores aren't great. So is there anything in here or anything that we're doing otherwise to go to the teachers at the schools where the scores are lower and ask them why, ask those administrative staff why, so that we could get 100% on those scores?
I would agree with you, Ms. Huddle, that was certainly a work in progress as we drill it down to that level. And we certainly take that under advisement and see what we can do to continue to educate all of our staff, administrators, our teachers, and parents included, about processes, procedures, about appropriate channels, and about what's available in terms of services that we can support them in their requests and the reports that they make. So that we'll take that certainly under advisement, and I'll share that with the team as well.
And I had one other question, but
Sorry. It's okay. I was going to go to Mr. Satterfield.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to offer a suggestion. I know that Mr. Bainham, I know he's brought up the bullying thing, I think, in the past, too. That's obviously a concern of his. If you look between pages 50 and 60, there's a lot of strategic plans in there. I know you've probably reviewed it, but I was just looking over them. There's a lot of things from the mental health aspect and making sure every child is valued and all that, to addressing the discipline issues, too. I will tell you that and all schools have to come up with these strategic plans. We've been through that process, and this is a working document. In other words, it's not something that's just in concrete and you don't deviate. you refer to it frequently. You go to it, it's a working document, and you can make adjustments. But it does give you it's a strategic plan, just like it sounds. So it's not in concrete, but it gives us a school-wide or district-wide plan of action to address some of the issues or the concerns that we have, or how we should improve. So that's the purpose of this whole thing. So.
Also, you said that this it was year 4, so we're coming to the end of this plan. When is the next one due? When do we start this process over?
We will start next year.
Okay.
And it will be an 18-month process.
Okay.
And as y'all know, there will be a lot of chances for feedback from the community, from the schools, from the students, the staff. That 18 months will encompass lots of getting feedback and really working together as a unit to create these goals, to create the strategies that we need to be able to meet these goals, and to look at those action steps and make sure that those action steps are truly going to drive those strategies so that we can meet these performance goals.
Okay, Dr. Ross and then Ms. Huddle.
Yes, I just wanted to share some things that we're doing, and Ms. Black has actually measured that sentiment that you talked about of school safety. So it has, we're not going to share it publicly, but it is a document that identifies those schools where that satisfaction may be low for parents, for teachers, for students. We've done it for parents first, and it just kind of gives us an idea of where schools fall, that we can provide additional supports. And that's kind of what they asked for, those areas that need additional supports. But I also want to give Student Services and Planning some credit with the Stop It app that has been utilized as our #1 tool for bullying. And if anyone in the community or a board member hears anything about bullying, you can report it to the school, through the Stop It, or to myself. I think one of the things, we can't stop it if we don't know it. And so we just share that you can report it anonymously, but never let these things go unreported, any sign of bullying. But there was another piece that, Dr. Harris, I don't hate to put you on the spot, but it's about students in the hall that a lot of our secondary schools are using. There's a particular piece of technology that our teachers use. You can kind of explain how that's cut down a lot of the bullying, fighting situation that we're seeing in the schools.
Right, thank you. I think you're referring to the Smart Pass that's in our secondary schools, and it's a tool that our secondary schools have used over the past year or so that, quite frankly, is an opportunity for teachers actually to kind of measure and monitor when students are in and out of class. So, for example, if there is conversation between, let's say, Mike Harris and Ross that is not very positive and productive, and we want to meet in the restroom, for example, and we decide that, and the school has some knowledge about it, that Smart Pass, if I want to get out of class to go meet and to do whatever, then that Smart Pass, they can actually flag that, and they can kind of prevent our connecting in the restroom or connecting in the hallways or what have you. It monitors, it even gives parents, if they choose or are interested in this information, and a lot of them do take you up on that, it does give opportunity to kind of look at a tracking of what Mike Harris's in and out of class might be, how often he's said he needed to go to the restroom, how often he's in the nurse's station, how often he's in the administrator's office, things of that nature. It's a good tool, it's a very, very good tool to monitor the traffic in the hallways during the instructional time. And I think a lot of our schools have seen a measurable success. That's why I referred to, as an answer to Mr. Bainham's question earlier, that I've actually seen more of a decrease than an increase, because there's some measurable ways in which we've been able to see that, and this Smart Pass happens to be one of those, and it is a talk among our secondary schools since we've had that and piloted early on in the year.
All right.
I had one more question. I don't remember the page number, but there was a section in here where it talked about the performance-based grading, and I may have the name not exactly, standards-based grading. That was something that this board discussed probably a year or so ago. I saw it in there, but we're not doing that yet. Is that right?
Ms. Giuliano, you able to speak to the standard-based grading process?
So we have proficiency-based grading, standards-based grading in kindergarten, first and second grade. But other than that, we do not have it in any of our other grade levels. We're certainly looking at success criteria, the ICANN statements for our students, especially in grades 3 through 12, and trying to look to see how we can incorporate that with families to give parents the information, to give students the information. But as far as proficiency-based grading and standards-based grading, that's K through 2. Thank you.
Is that up? All right, we have a motion on the floor, and it has been properly seconded. All those in favor? All opposed? And the motion carries 6-0. Thank you. That moves us to the last item on the action agenda, which is the approval of textbook adoptions.
Make a motion to approve the textbook adoptions as shown in Exhibit I.
We have our Director of Elementary Education, Mr. Michael Giuliano. Oh, sorry.
Did somebody second?
Second.
Okay. I just want to make sure I didn't miss it. Okay, go for it.
I apologize. Mr. Michael Giuliano to stand for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Ross, Madam Chair, members of the board. I did want to make sure that I recognized a few people in our audience today. We have not only our textbook coordinator, but also our coordinator of mathematics, Mrs. Amy Taylor. She organizes the entire process of textbooks for our district to make sure that our teachers are going through the process, utilizing parent representatives, making sure that they understand the ins and outs, and a lot of work that she has done. So we certainly appreciate the work that Ms. Taylor has done. I also like to honor and recognize the few other coordinators that participated in our process and make sure that they led and facilitated as well too. We have our coordinator of social studies, Ms. Melanie Sanford. We also have our elementary math specialist, Mrs. Erica Cartledge. And all of our CTE courses, many of our textbooks for our CTE classes, Dr. Charity Simmons. And of course, I have to recognize our Director of Secondary Education, Mrs. Walters. So thank you to all of them for all the process that they did to make sure that we have and bringing forth to you today textbooks that we want to incorporate throughout our district.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? All right, all those in, oh, okay.
So we purchased, correct me if I'm wrong, but we try, based on enrollment, to purchase a physical textbook for every child, correct? Or the state pays for it. Is that the way it works?
Correct, but some textbooks sometimes do not have a physical offering. So depending on what choices come forward to us, they may have an option for a physical textbook or a digital copy. Some options have both. We get a physical copy and we get the digital access. Others are only digital access. So it just depends on what is provided to us. And a lot of the just only digital access, some of those are CTE classes and some others. But as far as our younger grades, those are physical textbooks and an online option as well too.
Are there any that are only physical?
We do have a few that are only physical.
Okay. But the vast majority would have a digital.
Yes. Yeah.
So I got this question from some parents that are trying to help their children with math. So the parent can probably access the digital. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
If the child doesn't bring the physical home.
Absolutely, and honestly, it saves the students' backs a little bit if they don't have to lug home several textbooks. But they can always reach out to the teacher or to a school administrator, and they'll be happy to share exactly what they need. If they need a physical copy, if they need something else, they'll make sure that they have what they need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Barnhart?
Just to kind of follow up on that, are we seeing a lot more of the digital textbooks in our classrooms, that our teachers and students are preferring the digital over the physical, or is it kind of still half and half, or how is that looking?
It's very specific sometimes to the teacher and to the student, quite honestly. I kind of compare it to people that read on a Kindle or read a physical book. I guess it just depends on personal preference sometimes. There are some teachers that still like that textbook to hand to a child, when others like that digital component. Personally, I like when there's a mix, so they can have that option if it's available to them to have the physical versus the digital. But it's come down to a lot of times personal preference when it comes, and Ms. Taylor certainly can tell you that a lot of times when she's reading and listening to the feedback from the teachers, it really comes down to what they like to use in their classrooms.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor, for your word.
Mrs. Scully?
Yeah, I just want to say truly, thank you for all of your hard work on this. That's a big job, and bless you for sitting here all night.
All right, we have a motion on the floor, and it's been properly second. Did you? Okay. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Thank y'all.